𝗙𝗶𝗿𝗂𝗃 should therefore not be considered as a dairy supplement.
The Fanta of the mousel, so it's very easy to drink.
I will die on this hill and I will pronounce in this.
They would tie a live rooster at the end of a row of grapes.
𝗊𝗿𝗄𝗃, surprisingly, there's another one.
And these images that you see are also from 𝗙𝗶𝗿𝗃𝗃. 𝗙𝗶𝗿𝗃𝗃.
The Australian in me looking at this, like, I gotta tell you this story, right? That was a Pope.
The king.
Oh, the king.
King, yes. Now, this dancing plague is a story that actually reoccurs all over Europe.
Thank you so much for coming to the third edition of 𝗏𝗏 Fireside Chat. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces as well as quite a few new ones. And before we begin, I would like to introduce myself and the project for those who may be joining us for the first time tonight. My name is Julia and I'm the founder of 𝗏𝗏, just over there. This is a public history project that I founded 3 years ago with the goal to explore Luxembourg's identity through the historical lens. Initially, it was done through the blog, a podcast, social media, and gradually what started as an online project grew into something bigger, a space for conversations about the past and how they show us that it's still shaping the way we live today. And the Fireside Chats are the most recent chapter of that journey. Fireside Chats are supported by the Ministry of Family Affairs, Solidarity, Living Together and the Reception of Refugees, and co-produced with Radio ARA. And talking about or thinking about this topic, so Luxembourg summer in 3 acts. What is it? Pilgrimage, harvest, and wine. When this project started, one of the main ideas behind it was that the calendar year can be understood not just as dates, but as rituals as well. So for example, at our first event, we were talking about the spring traditions of Luxembourg and how people used to say goodbye to winter. And tonight we are stepping into summer. But historically, summer has not always been a season of just holidays. It has been a season of labor, devotion, movement, and eventually celebration. So we will follow this journey through 3 traditions. Tonight, we will start with the Hoppen procession of Echternach. This is probably the most distinctive and unique traditions of Luxembourg, and a UNESCO recognized cultural practice that is deeply rooted in devotion to Saint Willibrord. Historically the first and main patron saint of Luxembourg. Then we will move to the tradition that I will never be able to pronounce because it's quite a difficult Luxembourgish word, but I will try nevertheless. It's called 𝗵𝗿𝗄𝗃 or dag or dag in 𝗙𝗏𝗿𝗃. It's a harvest celebration that is taking place in August and is centered around the blessing of the 𝗏𝗏. So the 𝗏𝗏 is a bundle of flowers, of herbs, and it is deeply linked to another patron saint of Luxembourg, Virgin Mary. Surprisingly, there's another one. And it is a figure that has been very central and occupied a unique place in Luxembourg's history, traditions, and religious and cultural life. And then we will finish with 𝗙𝗶𝗿𝗂𝗃. So 𝗙𝗶𝗿𝗃𝗃 is not exactly a wine, but it's a intermediary product between must and wine. And it's that cloudy, short-lived, slightly unpredictable drink that occurs every autumn and symbolizes that the harvest season has officially started. More than a beverage, it also indicates Luxembourg's very deep connection with its harvest, not the harvest, but the wine growing traditions and the communal practices that surround them. I think that these three traditions invite us to think about the community, movement, faith, and the many ways in which people used to mark the passing of the seasons long before they became tourist attractions or heritage labels. And to unpack all that, I am delighted to be joined by Joella van Donkersgoed. She is a heritage scholar and a public historian who has lived in Luxembourg for the past 5 years. Joella has the background in heritage studies and in art history, and much of her career has been spent thinking about how communities interact with their past in the present. And in her time at the Center for Contemporary and Digital History at the University of Luxembourg, she has led multiple public-facing projects with the goal to make the historical research more accessible to those beyond the academic circles. So one of the reasons why I was so excited to invite you to have this conversation with me, and I even reached out to her saying, would you be up for a challenge? I remember, is because we share a very similar interest in public history, how we tell stories, how traditions evolve, and also how different people from different backgrounds engage with Luxembourg's cultural heritage. So I think that this perspective will make for a particularly interesting conversations tonight. So and with that, let's begin our journey through your Luxembourg summer in 3 acts.
Thank you very much, Julia, for having me here today and for your lovely introduction. I was also very excited to be approached by Julia because I had seen the account 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and I think that her style and her way of storytelling is very engaging. And it's very great that for an expat as myself, and I think a lot of people who are coming to Luxembourg to work here, they have curiosity about Luxembourg and the traditions, and there's not always a lot of information available. So you're doing an amazing job in showing that.
Try and show you. I mean, not a lot of information available in English. That's
In English,
probably that
exactly.
needs to be specified. There's lots of information, all sorts of different languages, except for English. Sorry, this is probably like the distinction that or the difference outside that the project is making. Yeah.
Yes, and I think this also comes to a little bit of a disclaimer in the way that we are doing our research. We're both expats, so we can ask some of our Luxembourgish colleagues, or we can search online. So the things that we're telling today is the stories that we have collected. And I believe that the past exists in the present through the stories and through the traditions that we tell. And Luxembourg, even though it's a small country, it has a lot of diversity. So certain traditions might be celebrated in a different way in the north than in the south. And therefore, I think that is also the beauty of it, that history and heritage can be experienced in so many different ways. So I'm also looking forward to the discussion afterwards today.
Yes, please. We will have, this will last for about 40 minutes, maybe less so now, but we will have some questions. So if you have questions, any questions about anything, please raise your hand, and yes, we'll try our best to answer them truthfully. So I think, let's start. Yeah, let's start with our first tradition. So this is the 𝗁𝗏𝗏 procession of Echternach. This year it fell on the 26th of May. This is the tradition has been taking place for ages. We will say specifically since when. Stay tuned. But for those who have never heard of it, or maybe heard but have never really been interested, never, for those that never really were exposed maybe to it, how would you describe it? What is it?
As a public historian, I would immediately go into the history of how it originally, there's many stories of how it started. The earliest documents say that it started in 1100, and that it might have started as a Thanksgiving after an animal epidemic. However, the most known legend is that of Saint Vitus, and we're going to talk a little bit about the legends that lie underneath this hopping ceremony a little bit longer. It is a tradition that has been done for a long time. However, initially it was only performed by men, and until the 18th century, when also women were allowed to join. And it is an annual pilgrimage, so it happens every year, and it is truly something that is a shared cultural experience that for some people they do it for religious reasons, while others do it more for culture or for the sake of tradition.
Mm-hmm. So it's not only like purely religious as you just said. There is a festival. Well, we will see it on the next slide. But usually, it accounts for between 8,000 and sometimes numbers go to like 12,000 people who participate. And Echternach again is not probably the biggest city although it's the oldest city in the country. So which is quite significant. But imagine only almost 12,000 people all come into this like one spot and doing this movement, which you can see in the middle of the slide. So what's the movement like? What's like, why is it happening the way it's happening? Yeah, what's happening exactly?
So people gather after mass and they hold hands with with the handkerchiefs, as you can see on the slide, and they hop diagonally left and diagonally right. However, there is another story that the Echternach stap was actually 3 paces forward and 1 pace back, which also led to a Luxembourgish saying that when you're moving 3 steps forward, 1 step back, as if you're not really making enough progress. So there is also, it's something that has been, it's a well-known thing. And also the tune that is played while they're doing the procession. So there's all these fanfares that are spread throughout the procession, and they're making a particular tune in which the step is made like that.
Yes, like hopping or sort of swinging, and it's a very slow like act, like a very slow activity. It can take for up to 4 hours, which is and I remember when I was reading about it and I was going through all the actual like timing of like when it starts, what's happening like in the run up to the hopping, to the procession. 4 hours, right? But like when I think about it, well, first of all, you have like 9,000 people doing that all together. Yes, I guess it makes sense. But you also need to be very devoted. Like, the physical stamina needs to be quite, developed, let's say.
It's a pilgrimage for a reason. You are actually, it's almost also meditative if you imagine that you're doing that for a couple of hours. And I think it's even more impressive for the pilgrims that are coming out of Wachsweiler, so from Germany. They're making a pilgrimage 3 days before the event. So 3 days before, they already start coming towards Echternach. And then they partake in the procession. So they've been already walking for 3 days, and then they come and then they partake in this tradition.
Yeah, and it's so they're walking for 3 days, like on foot. Obviously, that's the definition of walking. And then they arrived to Luxembourg at about 5 a.m. and greeted by the I understand the local priest. And then they go to the cathedral at about 8 a.m. There's the first mass that is happening, and at 9 a.m. they start the procession. And it's interesting also, we were discussing, so there's like several groups, not several, usually the usual account is 45 groups, but they can be something that I didn't know, and Joella enlightened me just before the talk, that all these groups, they don't have like an even number of people, right? They're all different, and you can register if you have like a really large group, and if you are just coming like with a couple of friends or even individually, you can just like join it on the spot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Without registration. Yes. So
Mm.
for larger groups, they require you to register to come.
Yeah.
And also, if you have a fanfare who wants to join with the parade, then you can register, and then you get the music. So the bands will receive the music before, and so they can practice the little riddle. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And I think also what is interesting about the German pilgrims who come, in one of the accounts that we read, is that someone said that the moment that they're meeting on the bridge of Echternach, which is close to the border. And that also, as after the Second World War, it was a moment in which people were reconciling again with their German neighbors. So it was a moment when these two groups came together again.
Yeah. And one thing that's a bit, true, the point that we were discussing just earlier, that if people are coming not as part of the group, individually again, or with family and friends, the reasons why people join are completely different. It can be as simple as I've never participated and let me just try it out and see what that is. Then I've lived in Echternach like my entire life. My grandparents used to do that. My parents used to do that, and I will also do that. And we even found like a quote by one of the persons saying that it's like musical like society, something like that. So basically, like, you need to prove, like, even if to yourself, that you can still do it, like you've still got it. And so this is sort of like, the second group of people, and then it goes all the way to, yes, people you like participate in 𝗙𝗵 because they've been following, and effectively it is like, it does have this sort of like a bigger idea that at the end of this activity and the end of this prayer session, something that I've been praying for will probably, like, be granted. I will be closer to that at some point in the future. And this is sort of like, this is a big step for me, but this is like a small step towards whatever that I've been praying for. And yeah, this is really a really multifaceted experience and like and activity.
And I think that's also the beauty of it, actually, that this tradition, is able to move along with a society is changing, that maybe before it was really a Catholic tradition, well, now it is also becoming more of a folkloric practice that people are joining and keeping in honor.
An interesting fact that I think that you mentioned, yes, that women were only allowed to participate in the 18th century. So before that, it was predominantly men. We do have a notion that dates back to the year of 1100, and that's also what you said. But at the same time, I think the official year, it's something like 1460 something, like 1400s. But the researchers and the historians, they all say that it's very obvious, like based on the materials that have been found, that it dates back. It's like the description of some very like customary like activity that's used to happen on a regular basis. And probably another thing that we should mention is why do they dress the way they do? If we go back to the previous slide, you see that it's a very united way of looking.
So they say that the outfit is actually the outfit that the pilgrims from 𝗏𝗏, so from the German village, would wear, and that has been adopted for everybody.
Yeah. So again, that was sort of like from 1600s, and became the custom. Another thing that, again, so you mentioned that this is a tradition that is pretty much centers around the devotion to Saint Willibrord. Who is, again, so despite the fact that having a public history project, not being a Luxembourger myself, but like exploring the country, pretty much, on a daily basis through what I research, through what I try to look for, and through what I found. I had no idea who he was before I even started. Although I do understand, like, now, having done the research and found out about him, like, understand that it's a very serious, like, figure, and the figure that has been perceived very seriously, not just in Luxembourg, but anywhere in the well, at least in Europe. So
Actually, as a Dutch person, it is a saint that is very important for the Benelux, so for the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg, because he was a saint who came and evangelized. So he came from England, as you can see, and then moved through the Netherlands, Belgium, and Luxembourg. And he was the first seat of the Catholic seat in Utrecht was set by him. And afterwards, he received some land from Irmina, from the abbess of Trier in Echternach, and that land was expanded by Pepin II. And
that was Pope. That was a Pope.
The king.
Oh, the king.
King, yes. And then so therefore, apparently, the abbey in Echternach is an imperial abbey. It was an imperial abbey because part of the land was gifted by the king. And he was revered for his missionary activities and gift of curing illness. So when he died, he actually, before he died, he built a church in Echternach. And when he died there, his tomb was created in that church. And because everybody, there was a lot of pilgrims that were coming to this church, they needed to expand the church to really have enough room for all these pilgrims. And now he has become even after or together with the Virgin Mary, he is the patron saint of Luxembourg. So he's really, really an important figure for the country.
Yeah, and don't know what I wanted to say here, but I think you pretty much said it all. Yeah, the pilgrimage started after he passed, and people have been flocking to the tomb. Not only because like he was perceived as having some ability, like healing abilities during his lifetime, but also because apparently, allegedly, the miracles started happening like close by to his tomb, and that's one of the reasons why pilgrimage even started and continues to this day. So yes, and historically, as I said, he's the first and officially recognized, or just official, patron saint of the country. And another thing that we and you started talking about that, sorry, so the origins, or like you can call them folkloric origins, you can call them just people trying to think about how it originated. Three main ones. So do you want to run us through?
One is through the three ones. So the first one is originates in a German village called 𝗀𝗶𝗿. I'm probably mispronouncing that. And it is a story that a group of people started dancing on Christmas Eve near the church. And the priest was very mad at them, and he cursed them to continue to dance until Christmas next year. So they couldn't eat, they couldn't drink. They were dancing so much that a trench was made in the ground and they sank upon it. And they were only released the Christmas after. Now, this dancing plague is a story that actually reoccurs all over Europe. So it's not something that is particular to Echternach, but some have connected it to the hopping ceremony in Echternach. So that would be the first story. Which contains a moral warning to the people that you have to behave when you're near the church. The second legend is from Boxweiler. So I've been talking a lot about this village already. So there were pilgrims that were coming from this village. And this one is already connected with Willibrord, because they say that people in Boxweiler were performing a pagan dance. And when Willibrord heard about it, he condemned them to dance and until they came to Echternach. So it was also a penance, actually, like you are doing bad behavior in 𝗁𝗏𝗏, so now you have to dance all the way to Echternach in order to repent your sins.
That's interesting that these two traditions are very similar, with the exception that the first one doesn't have Saint Willibrord, but the second one does. But in terms of like what happens, it's very similar. And the third one is personally my favorite one. If you can even like select a favorite legend that describes the origins of a procession. But yeah, Saint Vitus, a lot of people probably should know his name just in general. What is that?
So yeah, this is a story of the fiddler of Echternach, who went on a pilgrimage to the Holy Land with his wife. But on the way back, his wife died. And when he arrived back in the village, the people who had been saving his property didn't actually want to return it. So they accused him that, you have killed your wife, and now you will be hanged for your crime. And of course, he did not want to die. So he started to play his fiddle, and everybody started to dance uncontrollably, and they couldn't stop. And then he could run away. And
he did run away.
Yes. And the people kept dancing until Willibrord came, and he broke the curse.
Well,
so the saint was the person who restored people to their normal behavior.
Yeah, here's the Saint Willibrord. But it's interesting that also probably here we should say that it used to be, well, it was cancelled, it was banned effectively at some point twice at two different points in history. And at some point, you also mentioned that, and I think this is the second legend that talks about the pagan sort of like underpinnings, or a bit of a pagan context that is surrounds it. And obviously, the church might have had a bit of a problem with that, and how the dance, when it was accepted, it needed to be framed in some way to be well socially, and I guess from the like religious and episcopal perspective accepted. How it was framed as something that I have it here: disobedience, uncontrolled movement, divine or supernatural punishment or intervention, and eventual redemption. So when it's framed in this way, obviously, yeah, that works. That's fine. And it's something that embodies this sort of like between disorder and control that eventually comes through, I guess, well, from disobedience to obedience.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's pretty much what reconciles the physical movement with a religious meaning, I guess. This is the 𝗁𝗏𝗏 session of Echternach. Has anyone been or participated? You've been. Have you participated? Well, okay. Was it physically enduring? Okay. Okay then. But it's long though. That's like 3 to 4 hours. Okay, interesting. Well, did we mention though that it's obviously happening? It's not like happening in silence. It's happening with being surrounded by music. There's either those large groups that register. They bring their own like musicians and musical bands, or musical bands just participate on their own. And there's a specific song, I guess, or specific song, a specific type of music that is being played. So I guess that sort of like should help a little bit. So that's that. And from the end of May, because this is usually the Tuesday of Pentecost. Am I pronouncing this correctly? I think. So the 26th of May, all the way to the middle of August. So this is the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, and I will die on this hill and I will pronounce it this way. But you never know whether it's Daj or Dag or Dag. Sorry, the native speakers will will fight me on this one every time they hear me pronouncing this word in Luxembourgish. But so why do we have this like big gap, which effectively is June, July, and half of August? And we haven't selected anything in in between. The reason behind that was because again, if we're talking about my earlier idea about what a calendar can represent, so if we're talking about the beginning of summer, well, the end of spring, which is the end of May. This is how you're sort of like moving into the summer. You're stepping into the summer, and the end of summer. This is something that symbolizes the beginning of the harvest season, and those two are very significant to you in terms of like the how they symbolize the beginning and the end of the season, number one, and number two, they both represent or are represented, I guess, like by the idea of devotion to two sacred figures. The first one is Willibrord, patron saint, and then Virgin Mary, another patron saint. So there's no direct connection in between of them, but there is this sort of like, I guess, logical, cultural, historical, maybe to an extent, connection between these two traditions. But again, so we have this bouquet of flowers, which are not really bouquets; they're more like bunches of plants. So what are they?
Yes, so the 𝗏𝗏 is actually reminds the believers of the day that Maria ascended to heaven. So when they opened the tomb, there was a bouquet of flowers instead of the body of Mary. And this bouquet, therefore, became a symbol for this particular day, which is the Assumption of Mary. And they collect a bouquet of this and bring it to the mass and have it blessed by the priest. So that is what is happening on this day. People collect these herbs, grains, and flowers, and they bring it to the mass. So it's on the 15th of August. And it's a local practice in Catholic churches, although it is celebrated extra large in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, which is where we're going to talk also a lot about. And these images that you see are also from 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏.
So the flowers, probably we shouldn't go to the next slide. So the bouquets, again, or bunches of these plants, they are made in a particular order even, and they have a specific composition. So what is the composition?
Yeah, so the bouquet consists of grains, herbs, flowers, and roots. And as I mentioned, it is taken to mass for a blessing. They say that the carrot is eaten by the kids at the end of the mass, and that the rest of the 𝗏𝗏 was previously hung in the stable to bless the livestock, or nowadays it is brought into the household and put down as decoration. And it's something that continues to happen. However, today it's not that everybody who goes to church gets a 𝗏𝗏. It's actually something that you donate some money for a good cause, and then you can get the 𝗏𝗏 and you bring it home.
And in the past, also, there's an interesting detail that we found. I don't think that it's practiced today, but the number of the herbs or of the plants, flowers, was limited to 12 in the past. I don't think that this is the case anymore, but that was the deal. And again, so speaking about the connection to Saint Mary, like you previously said, so the tradition, again, it's not just Luxembourgish. tradition, but it stems from the 6th century ID, and what the Bible tells us is that Jesus's friends, when Mary was went through the Assumption, and they were near the grave, near the tomb. They smelled this very spicy, fragrant aroma. Opened the tomb, and there was a bouquet of flowers, and this is effectively how it's related to you, or how she's related to you, to this tradition. Actually, also were the one who introduced me to this Marian calendar that used to be quite a big deal in the past in Luxembourg.
Yes, so the Virgin Mary is one of the patron saints of Luxembourg, just like Willibrord. And the Marian calendar, which is an almanac that was printed from 1877 to 2017. So it's really recently stopped being created and printed due to modern day data protection rules. But it always featured Luxembourg's history, articles on Luxembourg's history and culture, a calendar of the events in the year, where you can get the addresses of certain institutions. So it was a kind of a mix between a phone book and a calendar and a magazine. And it was really a very well-known household publication that is both tied to the Luxembourgish Catholic identity, because it's also called after Mary, but it was also really a national identity thing, because all the it was about Luxembourgish culture and history as well.
Yeah, it's not related directly to you, to this tradition. I mean, to this particular day in August, but it is I guess like symbolizes why or how she was still is, but through that particular almanac, quite a significant figure in Luxembourg. And we did mention that about the 𝗏𝗵𝗏𝗏𝗏 session. So it's a UNESCO recognized tradition. Now this one is a national recognized tradition and custom, and I guess like a piece of heritage, which is quite significant. And talking about the connection between the two, I guess this is the third one that we can count towards how they are, interrelated. Interesting in my mind they are.
Yeah. And that is then the particular one, the one in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. So though that particular town has revitalized this tradition by expanding it into a harvest festival, because they were sad that a lot of these traditions were disappearing, and so they wanted to revive old crafts. So now you can also see how they farmed and how old farming equipment was used, and it was rehatched or revitalized in 1985. So and I think you also want to say something more about that.
I actually wanted to you, it was a good thing that you picked up on that, because I wanted to you wrap up this tradition with the story about how it was revived in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. At some point, now is the president of the association that organizes that in 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 on an annual basis. But there was an interview with him when he was saying that we were sitting with my mates at some point, and just talking about how there used to be this harvest celebration at some point in the past that their great grandparents were doing or participating in, and at some point he was like, well, why not revive that, because it's such a communal, uniting experience and practice. And they started doing that. They started getting the funding from different associations and whatnot, and they managed to put some money together, find the spice, the benches and the tables and whatever that was required for that. One very interesting point that he also made was that in the community, some people were not having very good relationships with one another, but participating in setting the whole thing up, this sort of like festival, participating in also in the dismantling it, so like doing something together towards like sort of like working toward the same goal. Like obviously it makes sense if you collaborate, because why else would you be there? Like then just to just leave. But people didn't leave, they continued, and apparently it buried the hatchels like of war between like some members of the community, or between even some families. It's like 𝗫𝗫𝗁𝗃𝗃 𝗊𝗃𝗃𝗃 almost type of thing. And it's a quite a big thing as well. Again, in 𝗏𝗏𝗏 specifically, he was saying that they served around 750 meals during the first one, and they also selected a theme for that first like revival festival, and it became an annual thing. So every year you have a particular like topic, and I think for the first one it was like an old type machinery that they used for like doing the agriculture in just in general.
Yeah, 𝗙𝗶𝗿𝗏
Which is what?
the farmer of the past.
Yes, voilà. That was the
theme of the first one.
Of the first one, yes, exactly. So that's that. And the third tradition, the next one, is sort of like related to the third one, because through this notion of or the idea or practice more like of harvest, gotta say though that during 𝗵𝗶𝗿𝗏 they also have it's not exactly like a wine festival, but it's not because it's not a wine festival, but because wine growing is so engraved in Luxembourgish culture and just life in general. I think there's also obviously people drink wine and people drink local wine. So 𝗙𝗏𝗏 is not a festival per se. It's a type of it's a drink. It's a I'm still cautious about calling it wine, because we'll find out that it's not exactly wine. But it's a also, as it turned out, it's a big part of Luxembourgish culture that I was not aware of. So tell us about what that is. Looking like grape juice ish.
Yes. And it tastes a little bit like it as well. It's very sweet. The first time that I learned about it was actually at a cafe, and there was a poster, the 𝗙𝗏𝗏 as do, and I was like, what is that? And I was explained that it was the Fanta of the Mosel. So it's very easy to drink. It is a partially fermented young wine from the Mosel region, and it only appears in early autumn, so the end of September, beginning of October. And you can only buy it for a very short period of time. And it is an intermediate, so it's an in-between project between a must, which is when the grapes are freshly pressed, and the wine. So in between, you can call it 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏. Yes, 1 week after you can already start drinking it.
Yeah. And probably something, I mean, we can mention it when we turn to the next slide, but you say that it is cloudy, so it's not processed and stilled, and this is, well, I guess not partially, to be honest, like from what I've read, from what I understand entirely, something that defines the name. So 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏 literally okay, so this is I'm being a bit premature, but 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏, okay, let's pause here. Sorry. Literally means feather white. Why? Because apparently the yeast cells are quite visible in the drink itself. Like obviously here on the picture you can't see it, but I guess like when you look at it in a glass, you do. And so they resemble the white feathers, and hence the name. Yes, and now is the good time to talk about the geography. So it's not just Luxembourgish, so it's Luxembourgish thing.
Yeah, no, it's something that is created in many winemaking regions because, of course, it's the first moment where you can taste the grapes. So you can have a little prelude to how the vintage might taste like. And as you can see on this map over Europe, it has different names. So 𝗵𝗵𝗁, 𝗵𝗿𝗏𝗏, 𝗵𝗁𝗃, 𝗪𝗁. There's all these, different terminologies for the same kind of drink that is in this in-between stage between a must and a wine.
And in the past, apparently, it was very difficult for you, still is very difficult for you to transport. You need to keep it upright because you can't, I guess, seal the bottles. Fermentation is still ongoing, so it can pop if you're not careful. And obviously, in the past, there was no safe way of transporting it. So it's like native to the wine growing regions. We have Europe as an example here, but I'm sure that, if you look at the different regions of the world where wine culture is quite developed, for example, New Zealand or Australia as well. I'm sure you will find, we have a New Zealander in the very main area that she's sitting there nodding. So you'll find something similar everywhere. So this slide was just to showcase the vastness of the idea of this intermediate drink. Also, I think we talked about that. I was like, why would you drink it that day? Why don't you wait, right, for when wine is ready? The real wine, I mean, the finished product is ready.
Yes, well, there's multiple reasons. First of all, it's very sweet. So the sugar content is much higher at that moment. So it's a really sweet drink. And apparently it is also full of nutrients. So there is a good reason to drink it because it has live yeasts in it. And B1, B2, B3, B6, B7, B9, folic acid, potassium, magnesium, phosphorus. Super healthy drink, therefore, to be drinking in the summer.
We found now one of the articles goes, so the drink also contains minerals such as the ones that you can see on the slide. However, their content in relation to daily requirements is low. 𝗐𝗏𝗏 should therefore not be considered as a dietary supplement. When has this stopped us, right?
Moreover, I would not recommend drinking large quantities of it because you actually don't know that percentage of alcohol that is in it because it is a constantly still fermenting drink. So you can start selling it at 4%, but it could be up to 13.5%.
You never know.
So you don't know.
Yeah.
Yes. And when you buy it, you have to drink it within a few days. So yeah,
apparently, yes, it's available for only several weeks when, from the moment when it starts getting sold. And in this year is going to be my first year in my 5 years in Luxembourg trying it because I've never come across it. I don't really I'm not a big wine drinker, maybe that's why, but I'm now very curious. I think the last thing that we could mention is that you saw that in the pictures that it's of light color, so sort of looking like a white wine, but that's not the only type of wine. Now, for example, in Luxembourg, this is the grape, the 𝗏𝗏𝗏, a grape that is used predominantly to produce it. This is not the only type of grape in Europe or beyond, but in Luxembourg it's used mainly because of its taste, and it can also be done made of the red grape.
Yes.
So this is a varied, and I think that's yes, over here we have a picture. So this is the festival in Schengen that takes place at the end of September, if I'm not mistaken. We have some dates on the upcoming slides, and many more other festivals that you can visit and attend, where you can drink wine, especially 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. And yes, you can see that there's some. The Australian in me looking at this, I gotta tell you this story, right? So when you look at wine that is sort of sold or stored in barrels
Yeah.
almost like like
Cherry
this.
cans.
So basically we all know wine that is stored in like boxes, or it's like sold in boxes. So this is like the type of wine that is maybe not very sophisticated, and again, like being a student, you always have access to that, and this is sort of like exclusively the only wine that you drink, and then you get so much of it that you develop a almost like a negative immunity to it, and you can't drink it like ever again in your life. So this is the case
Well,
with me. So when
nothing.
I saw it for the first time, like that
Yeah.
can't be it. Like
Yeah.
obviously
Well, you
it's not.
can buy it in a bottle as well. But
Okay.
the
No, yeah,
re-
we
yes.
had the picture.
Yes, yes. So but I think the jerry can is also because it needs to. It's an unprocessed product that needs to be drunk very quickly. So that is also partly why it's, you can buy it in a jerry can, and it's very because there's carbon dioxide in it.
Yeah.
So it is also slightly sparkling. You cannot completely make the bottle or the jerry can airtight because it will explode. So it's very important to kind of be aware of that as well.
But
when you are going to try it. Yes.
But 𝗏𝗏 specifically, so you in the run up to you the festivals, the wine festivals or grape growing festivals that we're going to show you, this is where you can specifically try it, and this festival has like a story of its own and history of its own. The rooster,
Yes,
is central to that to that story.
I absolutely love this story, so I wanted to include it. So this is the 𝗏𝗏 is celebrated on the 18th of October, and they celebrate the last harvest. So traditionally, what they did is that they would tie a live rooster at the end of a row of grapes, and the person who was able to harvest that a row of grapes the quickest would get the rooster as a prize. Now, of course, we don't do that anymore. So nowadays, a local artist every year creates an artwork, and the artwork is presented to the person who manages to harvest the grapes the quickest. And the 𝗏𝗏 during this day, there is a flea market, a craft market. You can try the 𝗙𝗏𝗏 and the 𝗙𝗏𝗏𝗏. So the red one and the white one, and yes, it seems like a lovely day.
Yeah, and going into you, so the slide that we promised you can take pictures of that. So these are the seasonal festivals that are starting now in July, all the way to the Fête des Vins and Créments in Luxembourg. This is probably one of the most famous festivals. Again, partially because it's held in Luxembourg City. But again, to go back, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 that we're talking about, so the 15th of August, it's also a public holiday in Luxembourg, so you can go because, well, nobody has work that day, and you can securely explore 𝗏𝗏𝗏. And the 𝗏𝗏 that we just mentioned is on the 18th of October. Saying September, it's not September, it's the 18th of October.
Yes. And there's two more on this list that I would like to highlight. The first one is the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 on the 7th and 9th of August. And the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is a particular drink. So it's also a very special drink that you can only get at that festival while you're there. It's a sparkling, sweet, refreshing drink made with wine and black currants. So and it's a kind of a big garden party. So going there and having a lovely drink together. And then the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 here, that is actually the biggest wine festival in Luxembourg. Last year, they celebrated their 75th anniversary. So they've been doing it for quite a while. And they instated it because they wanted to be the wine capital of Luxembourg. So therefore, each year they crown a queen, and then they have a parade with floats, and there's also concerts and fireworks. So that's also a very big wine festival. So that's on the 11th to the 13th of September.
Voila.
Voila.
Okay, I think that we are Wow, right on time. It's 8 p.m. Well, we
Excellent.
started at 7 and we finished at 8. We still have time for, we'll make time for questions if we have any questions. So if you don't have any questions, please follow. The project followed everywhere, but if you do have questions, yes, we are busy to answer. And our lovely 𝗷𝗶𝗿𝗄𝗏 has a mic to share. So you feel free.
Yeah, just to add to Saint Willibrord, the Irish embassy here in Luxembourg, I don't know if you know, they always honour Saint Willibrord and the Hopping Festival, because Saint Willibrord actually did his training, went from Northumbria to Carlow in Ireland and did his training in priesthood or whatever it was in Carlow in Ireland. So the Irish embassies the Irish community always celebrates Saint Willibrord also as one of theirs because he learnt. So it's interesting to hear the rest of it, but I just thought I'd add that little bit in.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Harriet. I didn't know, but obviously, like I found out, in the run-up to this event when I was preparing, that he comes from, was it Northumbria, somewhere close to Wood, apparently. So this is like a very straightforward connection towards them, and he came here. But I didn't know the connection about Ireland. Yes, next one.
Yes, I thank you for all this information. I interested about this Hopping procession. So, based on legend it come from, it's supposed to be a dance. It's supposed to look like a dance, right? How active is it? How is it look?
Well, that is a great because the legends are actual dancing, and the idea of Christianizing this dance is also to kind of make from chaos into order. So now it is an ordered dance. So now everybody is doing the same rhythm. So it was also kind of that's another way in which this tradition has become Christianized. That's one of the theories that we read, which I think is an appealing one, that now everybody has to follow in line and stand in line and do the same steps and adhere to what the church says.
Very slowly. It moves very slowly, yes. But 3 hours, almost 4, 𝗵𝗫𝗫, by the account of some people who experienced this. Well, then that's a perfect. Like the catering is already waiting for us, and the last thing that I have to say is thank you so much for agreeing to have this conversation with me. I was quite nervous to have this particular talk, and this particular 3 traditions, these topics, because they are quite difficult. You need to do a bit of digging. You need to understand like how, if they're interconnected, if not, how they work. In general, I was very happy that somebody who is a subject matter expert, at least when it comes to public history, in 𝗫𝗏𝗃history studies, the person who decided to make a career out of it agreed to do that with me. So thanks a lot again.
Thank you so much.